End of recording. Restart. I found out why. The file sizes in this camera, this recording device, it's formatted as FAT32, and the maximum file size for FAT32 is 4 gigs. And that's why this thing keeps stopping at 38 minutes. It reaches the 4 gig raw file size of 720p. It'd stop even sooner if anyway, I burden you with that. So as I was saying, I posted a thread in this thread, and I was talking all about the why. The people who aren't spiritual, they lack knowledge and wisdom and understanding. All they can do is look at the evidence and say, yep, a bunch of people died 12,000 years ago, and that's all they want to talk about. Yep, some people died. And why? And they argue about, well, why? They don't have any firsthand knowledge. Well, spiritual people are connected to the the spirit beings that did it. So you know exactly why it took place. There were wicked, evil civilizations in existence at that time, and you said, I'm going to push a button, and you're not going to exist anymore. The same thing with the Noahic flood, same thing with the gamma ray burst, everything. You was pushing a button and saying, I'm tired of all these weeds and thorns and thistles growing in my garden. I got one shoot of grain here, and then there's 10 feet. I got one little shoot of grain of wheat here, and I've got 100 square feet, 10 feet by 10 feet of thistles and thorns and briars. And Yua says, I want you to move that little piece of wheat over to Poland, and then I'm going to burn all the thistles and the thorns and the weeds here, all these, because they don't bear fruit. There's no fruit on thorns, no fruit on thistles, no fruit on briars. They don't bear fruit. And that's what Yua wants, is fruit. I don't have to belabor those that are spiritual to know it. Says you must bear fruit. Anyway, so I had created this very, very long, only partial, really, information about, well, why this 10,000, 12,000 year time frame where what triggered the Younger-Dryas event? Well, it was a comet meteor breakup impact that wiped out pretty much all the northern hemisphere. It killed 80% of all species of life at that time. And it wasn't an accident. It was, in my opinion, part of a weapons system where U.S. said, look, these, because there's been this glorification of Atlantis. Atlantis was wicked. That's what people don't take into account if they look really well into ancient history. And the primary author that I'm aware of here is Hesiod. Hesiod, Hesoid, Hesiod. And he talks about the ancient civilizations that were destroyed. They either destroyed themselves or they were destroyed, but it was because they were wicked. They were evil. It wasn't just happenstance and chance that these civilizations ceased to exist. It's because they were destroyed. They either destroyed themselves or were destroyed by Yua. So part of that's just a very small piece of this, because it has to do with Yua al-Shaddai, it has to do with Yua al-Olam, it has to do with Abaddon, it has to do with this war that's been going on. I mean, the first part of the war, the really big piece of this war, was 65 million years ago. The common people know it. The geologists, the people that study geology, they just, the KT event. Yep, another mass extinction event. They don't understand it was part of a war. It wasn't just a happenstance, random chance that, a rock hit and a whole bunch of things died. No, this was a weapon with a weapons system that was used very specifically. And I just stumbled across, as I had said previously earlier, the scientists recently, within the last 10 years, that rock, that 6-mile diameter rock, came in at the worst possible angle. And scientists and researchers are saying, this was the worst possible thing that could have happened. It was 60 degrees, worst possible angle.
And it caused this gigantic cooling, this, for lack of a better term, nuclear winter. Well, it was because it was specifically done. It wasn't an accident. It was done very specifically and deliberately to kill the reptilians, to drive the reptilian beings that were created by Olam. Yua al-Olam is the creator of all reptilian forms of life. And because of this war between Yua al-Shaddai and now, lately, mammalian forms of life and Yua al-Olam and reptilian forms of life, and because overall it was decided, look, I don't know. Yua al-Shaddai said, look, no more. Whatever it was with reptilian forms of life, they had had tens of millions of years to develop their energy forms of technology. Now notice I say energy. Energy is only in this 4D, this four-dimensional reality, whereas the big things that have happened have been the power realm, the ethereal realm where the power beings are adjacent to this four-dimensional reality, and the weapons that come out of there that are directed by the Arca reality. So there's nothing it doesn't matter how much energy technology that you have. They had tens of millions of years to perfect their energy technologies. They still had no defense against weapons that ultimately were directed by the power reality. Well, the weapons were brought upon this dimension by the power reality, but at the direction of the Arca reality. That's how it works. So it didn't matter how technological and how advanced these reptilian beings were, and they were extremely highly advanced. I mean, when you've got 10, 20 million years to perfect energy technologies, build things like Dyson Spheres, and have warp technology, those types of things really do exist, but they were created, developed by the reptilians, not by, when you see so-called science fiction, that stuff's not science fiction. These are technologies that really exist. But they were, most all of them, as a result of the creation, but the invention and the growing technologies of the reptilians tens of millions of years ago. But as a result of the war, the reptilian beings, even as highly intelligent and technological as they were, they could not survive against a weapon coming out of the power reality, the ethereal realms. That's why it says in the scriptures that mankind, it doesn't matter if they're golden age reptilian man or the more modern 50,000 years old mammalian man, mankind, regardless of his energy form, they're both energy forms. They're like a blade of grass. They're like smoke up the chimney. They're nothing. No matter how technological they are, compared to the Arca and power realities. The Arca, the eternal Arca, the Word that created everything, including all the energy realm and everything that's in it, and the power, Olympus Asgard power ethereal reality. Here's this four-dimensional reality, and you've got Arca, eternal Arca, the Word on one side, and you've got power on the other, and they're both into the four-dimensional reality, making things happen. And these four-dimensional energy beings have no ability to withstand what the Arca power ethereal realm does. There's no withstanding the eternal decisions and judgments and the word and the decrees of Arca, because Arca, the word, is what created everything to begin with. So if Arca decides, it's time for this particular group of energy beings to get purged, then that's what happened, was a purge. And that KT event was a really big purge. But there were survivors. They lost the right of first estate in the earth. They continued to exist. They were survivors. They fled deep under the oceans, deep under the earth. They've been here all along, and they fled to the local stars. They're still here, still around, nearby, but now it looks like the war is going to get finished with the ultimately 1,000 years from now, when the nebula, the nebula from Delta Capricorni arrives and continues to spread out. I don't think the reptilians, they just don't have the ability to continue to keep moving. The nebula is just going to chase them throughout these local stars. It's going to completely just that nebula will just completely melt. I mean, there won't be any life anywhere in this solar system when that nebula comes and wipes this solar system out. I mean, the basic planetary bodies might still be here, but there won't be any possibility of life surviving on them, or no matter how deep underground. And as that nebula continues to expand, it's going to hound these reptilians through the local stars until they can't escape, and it's just going to consume all these reptilians, in my opinion. Now, the one of the topics that was brought up in this massive thing that I typed out and put up on poll and got banned for, it's like, yeah, we're going to push our agenda and just talk about this 12,000 year time frame, and some people died. But if somebody comes along and says, do you want the other 95% of the story, or are you just going to stay here with your little 5% and argue amongst yourselves trying to figure out, why did that happen? Is the Dyson Spheres. There was a shuttle craft at one time sitting on the North Pole. This shuttle, the dimensions of this shuttle craft, it's big. It's 1,500 miles in diameter. I didn't stutter. 1,500 miles in diameter. It's pretty big. And the only place it can sit when it comes and sets down on the Earth is either at the North or the South Pole. Well, there's land at the South Pole, but there's no land at the North Pole, possibly because it actually landed there, or there wasn't any there to begin with. A long time ago, I don't know how long ago, 20 to 40 or 50 years ago, I found out that the Earth is actually slightly pear-shaped. And this isn't hard to verify on the internet. But I reasoned within myself. They were like, oh yeah, we discovered that the Earth is not actually quite round. It's pear-shaped. And I reasoned within myself with the basic scientific method, well, there has to be a reason why. See, that's the difference, as I had argued in this thread. The simple people, those that are not spiritual, lack wisdom and knowledge and understanding, they don't know why. They'll never know why. All they can do is point at what? Maybe not even that. They have basic knowledge, they lack wisdom, and they certainly lack understanding. And the knowledge is the what. The wisdom is the how. How did that happen? So they're busy arguing over, well, how did that happen? And they can't agree amongst themselves. They don't know how it happened, unless you know who it was. If you know that which did it, and that which did it says, oh, hi, by the way, I want to talk to you. Yeah, I did that. That's my handiwork. Yeah, I'm going to come and talk to you and tell you about how I did that. And not only am I going to tell you how, that's the wisdom. The how, I'm going to give you understanding. I'm going to tell you why. The understanding is the why it was done. And these people, in their darkness, their fantasies, they have no wisdom, very little wisdom, or no wisdom, and they certainly have no understanding. They're incapable. So all they're going to do is sit and look at a rock and go, oh, how, and argue about how. When if they were spiritual and they were connected to the spirit realm is going to go, hello, I'm going to tell you how because I'm the how and I did that and I'm going to tell you how. Oh, and as a result, I'm going to tell you why I did that. And that's the understanding. So I put a lot of that into this thread. I spent hours and hours and hours typing out all this information, and then I pasted it into the thread. And I don't know who or what it is that's behind these particular threads, but they ultimately, not right away, but ultimately they didn't like what I had said there, and they banned me for 3 days only on poll. They didn't ban me anywhere else. But they didn't like what I was saying there for some reason. And the threads continue. It's like, okay, we're going to keep talking about this. We just don't like you talking about it. Anyway, after, I assume, when this Delta Capricorni thing blows over, I'm going to get to say, you know what? You stupid, ignorant fools. That's what you are. You're fools. And I'm going to call you fools. And there's another word for fool, and I got in trouble with it when I was very young. There's this word which I think I'm going to really start using. It's going to offend a lot of people because they're not just fools. There's another word that's 6 letters long and begins with N-I-G-G-E-R. Are you an N-I-G-G-E-R? Doesn't have anything to do with skin color. It has to do with being a fool. I'm going to start calling people, the papists, N-I-G-G-E-Rs, mainstream science, N-I-G-G-E-Rs, and just go on. Mainstream politicians, N-I-G-G-E-Rs, and just go on and on and on, because that's what they are. They're all fools in darkness. Anyway. I belabor that. I'm ranting. Anyway, so long story short, there is so much more information. But continuing on, the heavenly city that comes down out of heaven in the book of Revelation is a shuttle craft from a Dyson sphere. A Dyson sphere. This term is coined by a man named Freeman Dyson. He's passed away now. What is a Dyson sphere? A Dyson sphere is a structure approximately 200 million miles in diameter. I'll say it again. How big is this thing? Now, to give you scale, how far away is the Earth from the sun? 93 million miles. How big is this thing? 200 million miles in diameter. Why? What's its power source? A star. This is a structure that is built around a star, and it uses a star as its power source. It's called a Dyson sphere. Well, these things are so big and so massive. They got a lot of mass. I mean, hey, I'm going to go pick a star over here. I'm going to build a Dyson sphere around it. And I'm going to have a spaceship to fly around in for 5 million years. As long as the fuel of this star lasts, I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of this Dyson sphere. It's got 5 million years it's going to be good for. But they do exist. And one of my friends had been telling me, they suspect the people that are spiritual or have some understanding, some knowledge and wisdom, they suspect there's actually a Dyson sphere. See, the deal is Dyson spheres, because they're so massive, they cannot approach the solar system. It's a gigantic spaceship, and it can move faster than light, but it can't get near a solar system. And so when you want to go and pick people up and drop people off at planets, and you're traveling around the cosmos in a Dyson sphere, you got to use a shuttle craft. So the Dyson sphere stays really, really, really far away, so it doesn't its mass does not upset the solar system that you're looking to interact with. Instead, you send a very, very small shuttlecraft. That's what's in the scriptures. And that shuttlecraft was here before. This is not the first time it's been here. It was here before for quite a while, and it just sat on the North Pole. And that's why the Earth is pear-shaped, because of the long-term effect of a long time that a shuttlecraft sat on the North Pole. And if I have my story correct, there was one here up until 12,000 years ago, and it left with a lot of violence, because that was a part of this story, that these recent men, because there's many generations of mankind, but the most recent generation, which is about, the 8th or 9th or 10th generation of mankind, is a form of mankind that was only created and came into existence 50,000 years ago. And 12,000 years ago, Yua Elohim, the Son, so-called Jesus, known by his name as Prometheus, gave mankind information, knowledge, technology, something that Yua Al Shaddai, his father, didn't want mankind to have. In other words, Yua Al Shaddai is like, or Yua Elohim is like, hey, I think you're cool. Here, have some knowledge. And gave mankind knowledge that they apparently didn't really need. And it was really serious knowledge, because we see this in the scriptures, and that's the ultimate story. The scriptures are incomplete. The scriptures provide fractional information, but the real entirety of everything there, because the scriptures only go back. Well, they go back way, way, way far back, because they describe how the creation came into existence, and it goes back billions, like I don't know, 4 billion years ultimately in the scriptures. But the real important thing that we're looking at right now, recently, is this 12,000 year time frame that had to do with the giving of this knowledge, this technology, this information, this forbidden fruit by Yua Elohim, the Son, so-called Jesus, to his children, his bride. But he was known by the name Prometheus. Different cultures, it's all the same individual. These are eternal beings. So don't get all upset if somebody says, well, I call him Prometheus, and somebody else says, well, that's Jesus. Or somebody else says, well, that's Yua Elohim. Or that's the Son. It's all the same individual. So anyway, the Father, apparently, as a result of, hey, they're not supposed to have this stuff, then attempted to destroy these men. And there were floods, there were disasters, there were fires, there was the Younger-Dryas comet meteor impact weapon system. Yua's like, purge, and really was trying to kill off mankind. At least these mankind. There's other men on the earth, different groups, of course, that are still here now. But Yua Elohim came and argued with his father and said, look, these, I want them to be preserved. And I'm just telling the story as it was paraphrased to me by somebody else. You have to find the story of Prometheus bound, because the 12,000 year time frame is 2 6,000 year time frames. And I've already covered the second half of that 6,000 years, which is in Genesis 6:3, which is that as a result of the Son being bound, and this argument and this interrogation, this activity, and his liver was eaten out by a bird and his side was cut open. This happened more than once. It wasn't just Mashiach dying on the cross. Anyway, I am somewhat guessing here. I'm giving you the basic parts of it so that you can go look it up and read it more and get the better understanding of it. I'm just going by what I was told. I got to go read it for myself. And plus everything that I know in the scriptures about this story, because a lot of it's in the scriptures too, but the scriptures are incomplete. I've been told that very specifically. You cannot come to a full knowledge or understanding with just the scriptures alone. There isn't enough there. You have to find older books of ancient history and ancient spirituality to fully understand. For instance, the Hexakiadekianity, there's pieces of it in the scriptures. There's this monolith, which I think I talked about. It was found in Poland, I don't know, like 1830 or something, but it's very, very old. It's thousands of years old. And it's about the Hexakiadekianity, this quadrant, this 16 quadrant of the arc of power beings at the top of the Father. I'll just go from, it's Yua El Elyon, the Holy Spirit, Yua Al Shaddai, the Father, and Yua Elohim, the Son, and Yua Al Olam. And then there's Abaddon, the Archangel Abaddon under Olam, and then the Archangel Michael under Elohim, and then the Archangel Gabriel under the Father, and then the Archangel Yod-Heh Vav-Heh under El Elyon, the Holy Spirit. Then you have the Seraph. Oh, and these, so at the top are the Arca power beings. Then below that, and I typed out, I've been starting to describe this more. The Hexakiah Entity is very complex, and yet it itself is only a part. It's only just a part. There's more even beyond the Hexakiah Entity. People say, well, I'm a Trinitarian. You know, I believe in the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Yeah. What about Satan? What about Olam? What about archangels? What about seraphs? What about angels? What about demons? Do you believe in them too? I mean, why are you only just looking at these 3 and not the other 13? You're missing 13 here. Anyway, and there's more beyond that. There's back in Erebus, there's the 3 fates and the 3 furies. And they are the tenders of the string, they're called. There's so much of this information, and you can only with knowledge spiritually, or as I've been a seer, I see this stuff. I've been shown this stuff. Oh, I just see what looks like I'm on a frozen lake. Well, it wasn't even a lake, it was a pond. It looks like, oh, I have this dream. I'm on a frozen pond about 100 feet, 200 feet in diameter. And there's five of these very brilliant neon green groups. There's big spaces, but there were these big groups around the edge of this pond I had this dream of. And they were brilliant neon green living things. It was like, you know, flags or cattails that grow in swamps, kind of like. But it was this brilliant neon green life. And it was 5 different groups of it. All pretty much looked the same, but there were these 5 green groups of life growing around the edge of this pond that looked frozen to me. I'm like, I was puzzled by this. I'm like, I'm standing on a frozen pond, but there's this incredibly brilliant green life growing up around the edge of this pond. And I said, how can there be green? It was because I was in Erebus. I was in the eternal reality. My mind's perceiving it as a frozen pond. No, I was in the well-watered place with the well of life and the 5 sources of life on that side of Erebus, which are the 3 fates, the archangel, I believe it's the archangel Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and I don't remember, I guess it's Yua Al-Shaddai. I think those are the 5. I know it was there, the 3 fates were there, of the 5. 3 of them are the fates, and then as I remember correctly, the Archangel Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, because Archangel Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is pure Arca. So the Archangel Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh only its primary situs, where the individual Archangel Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is, because it's a pure Arca being, only having Arca as its substance, is within the Arca reality. So it's going to be there in Erebus. And I gotta go back to Daniel and talk about this more. But then I got kicked off of the lake and I landed way adjacent next door in paradise in the 16-dimensional reality. And that was like, oh wow, this place looks like farm fields and a road and beautiful trees. Perfect. Everything was perfect. There was nothing out of place. I went from the 2-dimensional reality of Erebus and the Arca reality. Boom, I landed all the way over in my spirit. I literally got kicked. It was like I got pushed, shoved. But that was this very quick movement of suddenly like, okay, you've seen enough of Erebus here. Now let's go look over here in paradise, which is the 16-dimensional reality. That was just one of my many, 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 many hundreds, thousands of experiences like that. So if you only look at the scriptures, you're gonna get part of it, but you can't. It's just, I was very specifically told this. You're not going to get all of it. If you do not search for books and texts and knowledge, wisdom, and understanding outside of the scriptures, you will not come to a complete understanding because the scriptures are just incomplete. And plus, between all of the corruptions of evil individuals that have tampered with the translations of the scriptures, added on top of that they're incomplete, missing books, you can only put just so much in one book. And then on top of that, with deliberately corrupted agendas, with deliberate corruption of translations, it makes it much more difficult to know everything. from just the scriptures. You'll get part of it. I've gotten a lot from the scriptures, but you cannot, you're not, there really, I mean, think about it, there really isn't much of anything about Erebus in the scriptures that I can think of. I mean, there's the lake of fire and the well of life. But there's so much more to it than that. If you just know about the lake of fire, the well of life, and you're like, well, you just know it's something, but you don't know really much or anything about it. It's not until you read other texts that you're going to find out, oh yeah, they're together. They're literally a two-dimensional reality. The string, and again, it's an endless line. It's the infinite. There's the I am, which is the eternal, which is the zero-dimensional reality, upon the infinite, the throne reality, which is this string, this circle, which is the infinite, which has intrinsic curvature. That's very important to note. The one-dimensional reality has intrinsic curvature, so it's a line that actually reaches back upon itself. And then if you're spiritual and you see Erebus, it's this circle, that's the halo. The halo, you see people, even individuals on TikTok, particularly women seems to like this. I haven't seen really any guys, but women seem to be a little more spiritual. And they want to tell you, hey, look, not only do I have all this other, if I'm a cosplayer or whatever, but I've got a halo too. And it's between one of the really popular cosplays, because what it was is I had a dream about Junko. Junko Enoshima, I think that's the correct name. Junko is this cosplay, this anime character that has this incredibly large hair piece, hairdo, if you will, because it's the cosplay character. It's going to be a wig, but it has these two bears. There's a white bear and a black bear, with these two big bear, like, I don't know, scrunchies or whatever. It's like big, gigantic. Anyway. All you have to do is type in Junko Enoshima, or just Junko, Junko. And Junko is a very, very popular cosplay character. And even I like Junko. I really like Junko. There's something about Junko that really drew me. And I couldn't put my finger on it why, but I just really like Junko. And there's a couple other characters like that too, but they're white and they're black. There's another one. This individual has half their hair is white and half their hair is black. And what this is it's the Arca power reality. That's what it boils down to. Because then one time I had this dream or a vision. It was about Junko, and I thought, no, can't be. Creepy neckbeard Chet's been watching too many TikToks, and you're just, it's a bad pizza thing, or you're in your own imagination, or it's just you. Can't be from the Most High. Wrong. It was from the Most High. But my mind plugged Junko in there because it was something I was really attracted to. Well, really what it was the Most High saying, look, I'm putting authority and power on you. And this character is the embodiment of that. Anyway, so that's just one example of that dark similitude. And, in your mind, once you've got that pattern in there, that black, which is the Arca reality, and the white, which is the power reality. And then look, it's on your head. It's on you. It's vested on you. You're anointed with it. And that's what Junko is this individual who has an anointing, who's and of course it's really Junko in anime appears to be a pretty violent individual. Well, when you've got authority and power, you're going to use it. And that's this manifestation of Junko. Anyway, so, but going back to these aspects of the scriptures, getting back to the Dyson Spheres. Dyson Spheres are these incredibly large, very massive structures, and they do exist. And there was a Shuttle Craft sitting on the North Pole for a long time, long enough to actually slightly cause the Earth to become pear-shaped. If it had sit there, as my friend Daniel had said, for billions of years, it actually would have been subsumed right into the Earth itself. And this actually physically caused the Earth to be misshapen. Anyway, so because of Yua Al Shaddai, the father, being so upset with Yua Elohim saying, here, I want to share stuff with you. And Yua's father is like, what? What are you doing? No, they can't have that stuff. And he's wiping them out. But then Yua Elohim, the son, says, no, let's make a deal. I want to argue with them. there are children, and he argued for our preservation. And so he was bound for 6,000 years. And that gets back to this 12,000 year time frame. So the ignorant, these ignorant people are like, oh, some people died 12,000 years ago. I wonder why. It was because of something that happened in the spirit world. It wasn't just, oh, some rock happened along. No, it was because the Father got angry because of something the Son did, giving a group of people something. That's why. And then it's divided up into two 6,000 year time frames, because the nature of the creation is that it's hermetic, if you will. You can't have one without another. Yusha was bound. Yua Elohim was bound, chained up, argued for 6,000 years, I guess, how that story goes. And eventually had to be let go. But then there had to be a correlative because he was bound and restricted. And the war was still on. Then there had to be, okay, now we have to have a correlative reverser, an inverse of that for 6,000 years. We're going to have to call a ceasefire. And we've made an agreement. There's a deal. We have a deal in place. And to quote my friend Daniel, Yua Elohim has convinced his father, Yua El Shaddai. And now Yua El Shaddai has changed his attitude. And now he is very enamored with these people. He's enamored now. He's very interested. So the son has convinced the father, hey, look, you weren't correct in killing these people off. Let's make a plan for their salvation to fix this problem. You have a problem with them. Let's fix this problem with them. I'll provide the remedy. I created this problem. I'll solve this problem, which he has done. He came and died. Actually, he had to come into the form of a man, take and put off all of his eternal reality and everything, and took upon himself the fleshly form of an earthly man and died. There's so many factors to this, but long story short, that 12,000 year time frame has concluded, and now we're entering into another one. And even these people that are clueless as to why all this has taken place, they're the one little thing that's going on inside their pea brain is going, you know what? Maybe something really bad is going to happen again. And what this individual said, which I completely disagreed with, was they're saying, well, let's chip at some rocks. Let's chip some messages in some rocks so that when the whole frickin' world gets destroyed and we're all frickin' dead and all the civilizations that were here are gone, the only thing that's going to frickin' survive is a couple rocks. And so we're gonna chip the story of the last whatever message you want to send to the future generations. We're just going to chip this story into a rock, and after we're all frickin' completely obliterated, that rock will survive. And I said, it worked before. It did. Oh, but guess what? Bad news. It's not going to work this time because the fire that's coming is going to melt all those rocks. And it's only going to happen, it's only, the time frame now is only 1,000 years. The relativistic jet is going to completely melt half of the Earth. So all the rocks you're going to be chipping away at, if you think you're going to leave a message, half of all those rocks are going to get melted down into plasma. I mean, it's so that relativistic jet is going to be so destructive. It's just going to tear atoms right apart. You think a rock is going to survive that? It's going to be this liquid